So I'm listening to Put the Blame on Me or Blame on Me by Jack Harlow, and just got me thinking about the losses that I've experienced relationally with friends, but more importantly, people I considered family. People say blood is thicker than water, and that has rang true for sure in my life lately, and honestly forever. Shout out to DP, my brother Daryl, and Jen and the family that they, obviously my family. But back to the point. So I recently I went off on a man who I consider my brother. He and I met each other in middle school when I was 14 years old, and I absolutely hated him. For those who know me, I'm talking about Rainer. And his whole family considers me family. His little sister texted me on my birthday. She's the only person that has the ability to text me because I blocked everybody else. And she actually considers me her good brother, her nice brother. I knew that girl before she was born. Like when she was in the womb, everybody, we were all like talking about how, like, before we knew the gender, we were talking about, like, it's gonna be a boy or girl. And then when she was born, I never treated her at all like Rainer treated her. He's the type of guy who has always been estranged or butting heads with his mom, and treated his mom like she didn't give him the world, in a handbasket. Just a very ungrateful dude in terms of like what he was given and blessed with, in terms of having a very hardworking, entrepreneurial mom. She's like one of the top divorce attorneys in South Florida, probably in the country. Shout out to Serena Carroll of the Carroll Law Firm. And I feel really bad about how I handled the situation with them. More Serena, my mom, who I consider my mom, and that's really it. Because Rainer, I do feel some regret over how I handled the situation between Rainer and I too. But I've been given this dude the benefit of the doubt, and kind of like being patient with him for ever. I mean, for over 20 years, and it at some point, you get sick of doing that. And I can only deal with so much negativity and cynicism and pessimism and bullshit, despite me showing up for him, helping him get his son back, helping him, kind of reestablish a relationship with his mom, who is the person who connected him with the top family attorney in Broward County to get his son back more recently. It's just like that sort of thankless. Like, he didn't thank his mom when she helped him out with this, like footing the bill for that attorney. I asked mom about it. I was like, hey, did Rainer thank you at all? She was like, no, actually, on the opposite. He did the opposite. He berated me and called me a bitch and all these other things. I'm like, wow, you helped him get his son back, and he's still doing this to you? And it, like, she did that for free. She she owes that attorney for the work he did for her son. And her son's way, Rainer's way of saying thank you, is to berate her and blame her for his fuck ups. It's like, nigga, at some point, you got to own the fact that you are a fuck up. You can't be walking around here saying that my mom is the reason that I'm broke or depressed or overweight, fucking fat, smoking too much weed, doing too much drugs, and basically like ass out in the middle of fucking Nowheresville in Clewiston, Florida, because your dumbass thinks that it's better to live on a farm when you ain't a fucking billionaire or millionaire. You ain't even made $100,000 yet. It's like, bro, miss me with that bullshit. So anyway, I'm going back to the whole reason I started this video. It hurts. It hurts me washing my dishes in my apartment, and I just start thinking about my family and my friends and my loved ones that I've basically had to, God has gotten these people out of my life. And it hurts because I know that God did it for a reason. He's protecting me from something, from some things, and a lot of things that had to get adjusted in my life to give me the focus that I need, the environment. God is shaping the path of my life such that my emotional, the emotional elephant. This is a analogy from a book called Switch by Chip and Dan Heath, brothers Chip and Dan Heath. If you're interested in reading shit like this, like habit psychology, highly recommend that book, Switch by Chip and Dan Heath, so the Heath brothers, Heath. They talk about, they use an analogy. They say our emotional mind, our emotions are the elephant, and our logical minds, or our logical brains, is the rider of that elephant. Like there's a little man riding that elephant, and that's our logic. And then the path is, our environment and how we. So the path has a lot of pull or power, because when we shape our environment, then our logical brain can kind of steer our emotional side better. And so, it's a very interesting interplay of how our brains and our minds and our psyches and our hearts work to get things done. And so anyway, God has basically shaped my path such that now, my elephant has no choice but to basically just like buckle and do what the logical rider of the elephant is telling it to do. And so I love it, but it hurts, like, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not going to cry today. You know what I mean? Like I might very well break down in tears at some point today, thinking about all the loss that I've been experiencing, but it's a blessing and a gift, and thank God for it,